वहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। Devaya tasmai namah. So as we had planned, let us revise the fourth chapter. So that's what we will do today. And I've just found that habit to be very useful in my own study. I always never used to do that, but the more I do it, I find it is extremely useful because you go through it once and you perhaps don't get a sense of the continuity until you revise it one more time, and it all hangs together very well. So for that reason, so we're gonna probably take 2 classes to revise the 4th chapter. I was studying it last night, and I think we'll go through maybe half of it today and the other half maybe next week. So with that, our 4th chapter will be over, and then we will begin the 5th chapter. So if you look at the arrangement of the Bhagavad Gita, as you know pretty much, the first chapter is simply the setting up of the stage of the Mahabharata, and also setting up the stage for what the problem is. So this is what is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So the first chapter is dealing with the setup in Arjuna's life, which creates a sense of conflict in his mind. So, that happens many times in our life also, that you are able to make sense of what your life is all about, and you are reasonably satisfied with it. It's not as though you are completely happy with everything, but you can deal with things, and everything seems to sort of fall in its place and so on. But then suddenly something happens which you cannot explain, and it creates a sense of uncertainty and confusion and conflict in your life. So the setting of the Mahabharata for the teaching of the Gita is very important. So Arjuna's character was, we look at why the particular teaching was given to Arjuna. See, if supposing Arjuna was not a good person, not a successful person, had a lot of problems and, was cutting corners, he was not dharmic and so on, you don't need the teaching of the Ishvara to come in, because the person says that you just lead your life in a good way, and a lot of your problems will go away. Deal with others with tolerance, have forgiveness for yourself, those kinds of things we all know. But the peculiar setting of the Bhagavad Gita is to be appreciated, is that if you look at the character of Arjuna, you look at someone in our, it's very difficult to find such people who are very successful, very pleasant, and very dharmic. They follow things, they are very polite to everyone, they are very tolerant to the society. They're Renaissance people who are very well read, have a great personality, and everything seems to, you want to emulate a person like that. You won't find such people. This was the character of Arjuna. And yet he was very unhappy. And the unhappiness on him was thrust upon a conflict that happened in his life, where what he was prepared to do as the leader of the Pandava army fell into a problem where he saw that his loved ones, the ones he respected, the ones he really very fond of and so on, were on the other side, and he had to kill them. And all of a sudden, he had a conflict in his life that, why am I doing this? So let them live. So I will abdicate my responsibilities. I'll just go. It's okay. It doesn't matter. But I don't want to kill someone that I love. It's not what I want to do. So this is what is called a confusion in what is dharma, what is adharma. So, in fact, it's interesting if you look at the basic lessons of the Bhagavad Gita. It comes up in two ways. The main one is the confusion between knowledge and ignorance. The importance of knowledge, which we will study today also. So when you don't know something, then you are likely to make a lot of mistakes. Like for example, a very simple thing is that when you have some furniture in the home and it is dark at night, then you can bump into it not knowing that there was a piece of chair right in the middle of it. Somebody had left it and did not put it back, and it is now completely dark. But if it was light, then you would not bump into it and get a bump on your knee. But at night time, you are excused because you didn't know. So ignorance and knowledge is one thing. And so that is the main idea of the Bhagavad Gita, of all entire Vedanta, is to understand the Atma and distinguish it from the Anatma. Because we don't know who we are, we have some confusion about it. It's like a darkness. We keep bumping into life. If we do, then it's a different thing altogether. So anyway, that's one of the two things that Bhagavad Gita points out, namely the confusion between knowledge and ignorance. And that confusion is made worse by the fact that what you think is true is really not true. That's also an offshoot of ignorance alone. Anyway, so I won't go into more detail on that. So that's one thing. That means aviveka in technical language. This is called Atma Anatma Aviveka. Not being able to distinguish between what is true and what is not true. This is the main section of the Bhagavad Gita. But there is a secondary section of the Bhagavad Gita, which is aviveka between dharma and adharma. So it has nothing to do with knowledge or ignorance, but what is to be done and what is not to be done. You can have an aviveka. And so Krishna had to first teach Arjuna that you have aviveka between dharma and adharma. How? Because Arjuna's dharma means what should be done by a given being, human being. What is expected out of him, what is normal and so on. It's called dharma. So the Arjuna's dharma is that he was always a leader of the society. Everybody followed him. And they expected that he would take them to the victory over the Kauravas, who were really very bad people, terrible people. They're liars, they're cheats, they're killers. And it was very normal for people to say that we need to really put them right. This is the dharma of Arjuna. And yet, Arjuna is now confused because of certain moha, some love for his own things. He's unable to see that the whole society will be destroyed if he allowed the Kauravas to win. Unable to see that. And so he makes a mess out of his life by sitting down and saying, I'm not going to fight. What's the reason for it? Why is there killing? Exactly the same thing happened when Ashoka, the king, immediately felt that all this fighting in India and so on and so forth, I am just going to do non-violence. I'm going to follow Buddhism. Created such a mess, it took us many centuries. We're still fighting with it. All because of one person. So similarly, Arjuna also had moha between karma and dharma and adharma. So Krishna first had to, before you go to knowledge, he had to teach him what is the right thing for you to do. Arjuna, you are confused. Society expects you to fulfill the promise that you have shown all of your life. You're a leader. Go do this. So those are the two topics of Bhagavad Gita. So what I was saying was that the first chapter is to set up the background for this kind of behavior on the part of a very good person. This is why I always think about this, that really if you are not thinking right in your life, then people can give you some advice and you can be okay. But if you're thinking right and you are a good person and yet you are unhappy, then it requires some special teaching. That's why the character of Arjuna is very carefully created by Vyasa. So anyways, that's the first chapter. Then, out of the 18 chapters, the second chapter and the 18th chapter are summaries. In Sanskrit it is called Upakrama, Upasamhara. Upakrama and Upasamhara means, just like, whenever you are going to give a successful talk, what you will say is, I am here to talk to you about, and what I'd like, and so on, so some topic, and I would describe to you, here is, in the next hour that of my talking, here is what I'm going to tell you. Tell people what you're going to tell. Then tell them. And at the end, you say, I just want to revise what I told you. Here are the things that I wanted to make sure. So the beginning is called Upakrama. The ending is called Upasamhara. So the second chapter is Upakrama. Second chapter of transitions from the stage to the actual summary of what is going to be told. And almost like a complete summary. There karma is involved, jnanam is involved, dharma is involved, and what is a successful person is involved. And in a way, the entire first chapter of the Panchadashi that we are doing on Tuesday night, it's kind of like that. It's the second chapter of the Gita. It gives you a complete review of the whole shebang. Then the 18th chapter summarizes which has already been told. So now we have the bookends, so to speak, first and the last. The third chapter onwards describes the details. In particular, the third chapter focuses on karma. Karma as a yoga, not karma as the normal things that we do, but the usefulness of karma in my growth in my life, the attitudinal aspects of karma. I mentioned that before also. The karma and a karma yoga is very much like teaching a child on how to use a very sharp instrument, like scissors, or even worse than that would be a knife. And a child that doesn't know how to handle a knife, supposing you have a 2-year-old, 1.5-year-old, you cannot give a child to 1.5-year-old. In fact, it's very interesting. If you watch the very young tot, like 2 or 3 month old, what they do is anything that they see, they put it in their mouth, including their fingers. Because they have something different and they want to put it in them. You give a knife to that person, you know what they'll do? They'll put it in the mouth. And even other children who think that they can handle knives, no. They cannot handle knives. So karma is like a knife, which is a very sharp instrument, and we misuse it in our life. This is the problem. We think that karma is for my immediate gratification. I manipulate all the things in my life for my immediate gratification. And Ishvara says, no. This is what is called Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas and Preyas. So you have some immediate, it's like money. So supposing you get some money, now you have a choice. Supposing you have some extra money, some bonus that the employer gave you. You have a choice of either spending it right away for your own pleasure, or if you don't need it, saving it for later use. This is called Shreyas. And Preyas is immediate use. So karma, to be used as a yoga, is Shreyas. How you have the right attitude towards you. The karma itself doesn't change. You keep on doing what you need to do. But how you view it changes its usefulness to you. So this was taught in the third chapter. Then in the fourth and fifth chapter, the main topic is knowledge, jnanam. And then the other chapters later on will describe the relationship between them, the individual versus the Ishvara, the whole creation. There are lots of other topics that have to be talked about, bhakti, etc. But the main focus of the fourth and the fifth chapter is not karma, but jnanam. So jnanam was also introduced in the second chapter as part of it being a summary. In fact, in the second chapter, the 12th through the 25th verses of the second chapter talk about the jnanam. Okay? Natvevaham natu jasam dehi nitya vadhyoyam dehe yam dehe sarvasya bharata natu sham sochitum arhasi. All of that was given. It was said that, listen, you think that you are killing someone. The Atma cannot be killed. And here's why. It's like you cannot pollute space. Space cannot be polluted. Air can be polluted, but space cannot be polluted. All of that was described in the second chapter. That is taken up again in the fourth chapter. So let's now begin the fourth chapter and do a quick summary of that. So before taking up jnanam, Krishna makes a side trip in up to verse number 8, 1 through 8. He makes a detour for a reason. For a reason. The main reason is what is called Gita Stuti, and also called Sampradaya. Stuti means praise, and Sampradaya means, this is an important thing to see, Sampradaya. Samyak pradati titi pradade pratati pradadi. Sorry, Samyak pradati iti Sampradaya. One which is taught very well is called Sampradaya. And the meaning, the reason why Krishna takes this opportunity to extol the Sampradaya, which is also the Stuti, is because until we understand that what I am gaining is something which is well recognized throughout my history, this is constant from the very beginning, it's not something new. That's why this is called Sanatana Dharma. So you know, this is the thing. A new religion which is created means that before that people didn't understand. As though Ishvara had made a mistake and somehow it did not understand. I am going to tell you what the new religion is. Follow me. No. So this is why the Vedas are called Apaurusheya. It is not made by human beings. It comes from Ishvara himself. It was never started. So that is the purpose of Sampradaya. Sampradaya means that it is given from the very beginning itself. It's not something that just came about. So in the very first verse, I'll just quickly go through this. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam vivaswan manave praha manuhu ikshvakave bravit. So Krishna says, listen, Krishna as being the avatara of Ishvara, was saying that when he says I, he means myself as the Ishvara, taught this from the very beginning. There's nothing new. This has been there as soon as the creation comes about, which is nothing really comes about. It is simply an expression, because nothing is created from the beginning. It has always been there. It is manifested. So in the beginning of the manifestation, he says, this is how we did it. So the idea here is, please have Shraddha, that this is not something which was just, because here's what happens. When a new religion is created, somebody may say, well, They may be somebody who would improve upon this. In fact, Swami Dayanand used to joke about this. He was very fond of Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, and he was a funny guy. He had love for these strange people. I have no idea how he loved Muhammad Ali, and he also what is the name of this tennis player? I forget these names. This guy who married the Playboy centerfold. What's his name? Huh?
John McEnroe.
John McEnroe. Jimmy Connor. Thank you. So I remember when we were at the ashram in Sailorsburg, and Swamiji was very fond of tennis, watching tennis. So we would have that, some videos for him. He would be very fond of Jimmy Connors. And the rest of us, we said, what kind of a personality he is? He's too aggressive. He says, I really like this personality. We all thought it should be Vijay Amritraj, who shakes his hand. He actually claps every time there was a good shot. Swamiji says, that's not good. He should be really. So he had a very funny kind of a situation. So he was actually very fond of Cassius Clay. Cassius Clay said, he may be the greatest, but I am the latest. So Swamiji loved that saying. He says, when the new religion is started, this is exactly what happened. They say, maybe the Vedas were wonderful and so on, while in the old times, but for this time, this is the new religion. No. If it is something which is truly precious, it will not change. It will serve the antiquity, it will serve now, it will serve all the future. That's the meaning for Sampradaya. So he's pointing that out. He says, so, evam parampara praptam in the second verse. Imam rajarshayo viduhu sakalena iha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. So he says, it may be that the quality of teaching may have become lost over time because of it not being taught properly. That is the reason why the avatars come from time to time. So the avatara then is given. So in Sa eva ayam maya te adya yogaha prokta puratana, number 3, bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etad uttamam. Then Arjuna asks him a question in number 4. He says, wait a second. You are confusing me, Krishna. You are aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha katham etad vijaniyam tvam adau proktavaniti. He says, Vivaswan from the was long time ago. He is the son of sun. And you are just born now. How could you have taught him then? So he says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha in number 5. Bahuni me vivavitani janmani tava Arjuna tani aham veda sarvani tvam vedha parantapa. So he says, listen, I as Ishvara have always been around. And in fact, he says, it's very interesting, you have always been around. This is something we have to really grasp and understand. That as a person, I was always there in one form or the other. Because my nature is astitvam, I am, satyam jnanam anantam. So the form of myself might be different, but my existence should not be questioned, because Nothing new is ever created, only manifested. So Krishna says, you have also been around, but the only difference between you and me is you don't know who you are. And I know who I am, and I know who you are. That's all. It's all a question of knowledge and ignorance. But otherwise, we've always been around. It's kind of like, in our own life. We disappear during the night. We cease to be people during the deep sleep. But then the next day when we wake up, it's a continuation of the previous day. We are a day older. We have probably added half a pound during the night. Slowly we keep on adding pounds. So there are some small differences here and there, but it's a continuity. And in fact, as you know, the death of the body is simply, in fact, this is something we should really understand very well. We think that what will happen if I die, what so on and so forth. From a Vedantic standpoint, the only difference between death and deep sleep is that in deep sleep, your waking up is in the same set of appliances. And in death, you take up a new set of appliances. That's it. Experience of death is the same as deep sleep. The whole thing is very similar. But there the appliance has to be changed because some problem has occurred, so you can't use it anymore. But you as the jiva is continuous. And you as a jiva also cease to be continuous once we understand the non-difference between jivatvam and parameshwaratvam. So this is the thing, we should see this. When you say, when someone feels, I am alive. So when you say, I am alive, there also is not the complete truth. Why? Because I am alive has two components to it. Think about this. The two components are I am and also alive is the second component, which means I exhibit the signs of movement, talking. This is called aliveness. But the first part of that is I am. So the Atma is I am. Never dies. I am. And I know. I know and I am. Satyam Jnanam. Anantam. But the association with prana makes me feel like I am alive. So there is neither death nor life. There is only Atma alone. Anyway, we're just getting ahead of it. But here, Krishna explains the concept of avatara. And there he says that all that happens is that if this teaching becomes old, then to revive it, I just take a birth from time to time as an avatara. And here, if you recall, we had done this analysis that Swami Paramarthananda had given us, a point-by-point difference between a jiva and an avatara. So one was called a karana bheda. This is the difference between a jiva and an avatara. One is called karana bheda. The second one is called swarupa bheda. And the third one is called karya bheda. So let me just quickly go through, even though I'm spending too much time, we won't be able to revise it, but it's good to Some of you may not have been there. So Karana Bheda, the jiva is born because of our karma phala. We are what we are as a result of my previous karma, samskaras. Nothing is out of place. I am born with a given set of parents. I am born at a particular place because of my previous samskara. And I am helpless in terms, I didn't choose my birth, but my samskaras made me choose the birth. And here Swami Maheshananji actually is, I had a discussion with this with a couple of my Swamis, and they're saying, I think that's going too far. But Swami Maheshananji makes a point. He says, I think that you choose your parents rather than your parents choosing you. It's actually a mutual thing. Because in all your samskaras, you tell Ishvara, here's what I want to do next. And you don't even have to tell him explicitly. In fact, it just so happens one of my friends is on his deathbed. And in fact, either tonight or this afternoon, I have to, I think he's got lung cancer and a lot of complications, and they are just preparing to. And so I'm spending some time with him and telling him that really you should, if possible, think about your prayers to Ishvara at this point and think about what you want to do in your next life. This is what the 8th chapter of the Gita says. The 8th chapter of the Gita, which is what I recited already. I went there yesterday, and but he was under complete sedation. So hopefully he's somewhat awake, and I'm just going to explain this to him. So anyway, so the samskaras are the ones that brought us here, and they're the ones that make us choose. It's why if you're born in India versus you're born here amongst good family, not, difficult family, whatever, they're all done, so on. So one difference between a jiva and an avatara is karana bheda. Karana bheda means that this is the cause why you are born. And a jiva is born because of the samskaras, as a karma phala. You are helplessly at the mercy of your samskaras. And avatara is born because of a choice of Ishvara. It is not because of being under pressure from samskaras. So this is one difference. Then the second one is Swarupa Bheda. So one is the cause, the other one is the actual Swarupa. And the difference there is that the jiva is a samsari. Is a samsari, meaning that when things happen to you, you really think they are happening to you. You don't have any other experience that this is just a play. Really, what things are happening to you are like a play, but you don't see it that way. You see the play as being, this is what my life is, this is my problems, here's my aspirations, and so on and so forth. This is exactly what happens. Whereas in the case of an avatara, the experiences may be the same, but there is an understanding that this is not who I am. So in fact it is said that in the avatars of Rama and Krishna, they had a lot of problems. Rama, as you know very well, the stories of that he had to go to a forest, and and then his wife was abducted by Ravana, and what he had to do and so on and so forth. And in Krishna, and in fact it's interesting that we're talking about Krishna, because in our next aim for Seva for our October 6th, we are having a play called Nandalala, which is the life of Krishna from being born all the way up to being a teacher in Gita. It'll be very fun. So Krishna had a lot of problems too, but throughout his life, he was aware of who he was, that this is just a play. So just like a play also has the same experiences. I was telling you this example, you may have seen this, that if somebody had told me this, and it's always stuck with me, that there was a woman who was acting in a play. And she's an actress, and she's a very good actress. By the way, the word actress has disappeared. It's now actors, which I cannot get used to. When I grew up with actors and actresses, now there's no actresses, everybody is an actor. Very strange. Anyway, so she was an actress. I'm just going to go back to my roots. She had two daughters. One was 3-year-old, the other one is 9-year-old. And usually when she goes for her plays, she leaves her children with a babysitter. But this one day, the babysitter said, "Ma'am, I cannot come because I have something to take care of." So she says, "Okay, you come, I'll take them with me." So she told both of her daughters, "Listen, I'm going to be in this play, and you kindly sit on the side of the stage away from this, and it'll be, so you have to do some doodling or something like that." And she told the older one, "Please take care of her and make sure." In the play, she plays an abused woman. And in the marriage, so her husband beats her up and all kinds of, and she's supposed to cry, and all kinds of things are happening. And she gets very well paid for this role. So she's going through all this. So the 3-year-old is sitting on the side, and she is horrified that her mother is getting abused. And she says, and the 9-year-old, she's doodling and so on, doing some homework, and she's seen this before, and she knows what her mother is going through. So she's not perturbed because she thinks it's a play. In 3-year-old doesn't know the difference between play or not play or anything. All she sees is her mother is getting abused. So she rushes onto the stage and clings and says, "Mom, what's happening to you?" And the curtain drops, and the director says, "Who is this?" She says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry," this so on and so forth. The whole play is spoiled. This is a very good example because the 9-year-old is able to tell this is a play. It is not for real. So in our life, we are like a 3-year-old. Whatever is happening to me, it is really happening to me. I don't see it as a play. So the difference between, so this is what is called Swarupa Bheda, between a jiva and an avatara. A jiva and the avatara both go through the same experiences, as Rama and Krishna also did. Worse sometimes, but it doesn't touch them because it's a play. So you get abused in a play, you'd rather not be even abused in a play. That'll be kind of nice, but it's okay. It's all, you get very well paid for it. So this is the second one. Then the last difference between a jiva and a avatara is karya bheda. Karya bheda means what is the purpose of it. So we saw three types of Bhedas. One is Karana Bheda, one is Swarupa Bheda, and the third one is Karya Bheda. And the difference is that in the case of a jiva, it is to exhaust the samskaras, good and bad. And in the meantime, we actually get new ones. So it's a continuous process. It's a mess, really speaking. In the case of an avatara, is to revive the teaching. Anyway, I've talked enough. So that's why it is said in number 6 and 7. In number 7, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthana adharmasya tad atmanam srijami aham. So this is the very famous one. He says, whenever there is a glani, whenever there is things are not working well, I come up with a shape. Yes, Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, so there's these Kali Yuga and all these yugas are there. So we're right in the middle of the Kali Yuga, which is the worst one. Then things will start improving. It might take a couple of million years. So I don't know whether, hopefully we'll all be moksha by then. So we won't have to do that. But this is the Kali Yuga. And Swamiji said that really things are not as bad as they're going to get. It'll get worse. How? He had a very funny example. He says, right now, there's only a couple of countries that will imprison you if you teach Gita publicly. Here we are okay. Here we are okay. I cannot go to a Christian church and start teaching Gita. That will be intolerable. But in our own house we can. In Saudi Arabia, you cannot teach Gita publicly. Cannot do that. Swamiji says there will be a time when in all countries it will be like that. You cannot teach Gita. And the sadhus and brahmanas will say, what is going on? Our culture is getting destroyed. We cannot teach it anywhere. Possibly even in India. Very possible. But that will be temporary. Then things will improve again. So anyway, so this is what is called yada yada hi glanir bhavati. Then number 8 was paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Then I come back again and so on and so forth. Okay. Now the detour is over. Detour is over means what were the two main topics of the detour? One was the stuti of Gita and also Sampradaya, and the second one was the Avatara Rahasyam. So these were the two side topics. With verse number 9, the main topic of the 4th chapter begins, which is Moksha Marga. And Jnanam, knowledge, is the main topic. Okay? So here, before he goes into the explanation of the Atma Jnanam, which will begin on verse number 12, in number 9, 10, and 11, is an interesting introduction to Jnanam. And the introduction to the Jnanam comes about in talking about one of the two ways you can make your main enquiry as predominant in your life, eventually both the ways have to come together. But when you start, you can do emphasis on one versus the other. What are the two ways? One is a understanding of yourself as a human being. How am I functioning? So all this thing about the Panchakosha Viveka and the three states of experiences, Swapna, Jagrat, all this is to do with an examination of how I function as a body. So this is one way you can do. So in the Mahavakya Tat Tvamasi, you and the Ishvara, you as the microcosm and the entire Ishvara as a macrocosm are one and the same. So it all comes together in the end. But whether you do Tvampada Vichara first or Tatpada Vichara first, you can do either one of them. You can do either one of them. And so if you look at, for example, if you look at some of the the recent religions, especially Christianity, the Christianity is more on, and I think we are studying this in the Panchadashi class also, is Tatpada Vichara. It is to understand Ishvara, Christ, and so on and so forth in great detail. And the Tvampada Vichara is shortcut. Not shortcut, it is not accented very much. Short-changed was the word I was looking for. It is short-changed. Or you can take the Buddhist view, which is Tvampada Vichara but not Tatpada Vichara. In fact, there is no Ishvara in Buddhism. There's no God in Buddhism. And it's very interesting that in Christianity and also in Islam, the main topic is Ishvara. In Buddhism, the main topic is the human being. In Vedanta, both of them have to come together. And where you start almost doesn't matter. Both have to come together. So here in the verse number 9, 10, 11, an introduction to Jnanam is given in the form of Ishvara Vichara. This will be expanded in the later chapters of the Gita. When the Vibhuti section comes in, I think 10 or 11, all of that will be again great detail. But this one gives a small introduction in terms of Ishvara Arpita Jnanam. So in number 9, he says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma na iti mama iti saha Arjuna. So the English translation of that, I'll just say, hey Arjuna, he who thus knows my divine birth and action does not take another birth after giving up the body, he attains me. So what it, as for those of you that are attending the earlier class on Mandukya Karika, and we even in this class, and so this is an important thing to see, the Jivatma. So remember in the earlier class, for those of you that were there, we said Saha Atma Savigneyaha. This was in the Mandukya, seventh verse of the Mandukya. So that means that the Atma is worth knowing. This Atma means the self, me. is worth knowing. What it means is that the independence, the infinity, the independence of time and space, independence of death, independence of birth, independence of all problems, is what is called Paramatma. And the Jivatma is really Paramatma and is worth knowing. The very essence of Jivatma is Paramatma, and that is worth knowing. As we have seen, the very typical example that if you are a room space, then it is worth knowing that you are not room space. The room does not limit the space. The space is independent of the room. In fact, all rooms are within space itself. It's just the opposite. Worth knowing. So this is what this verse is actually pointing out. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma neiti mam. No, there's a problem here. Na eti, sorry. Yeah, naiti. It's naiti mam iti so Arjuna. What it says is that one who understands the nature of Paramatma ultimately as non-different from themselves, ball game is over. They are free. Otherwise, you have to take another birth again and again until you understand this fact. Because your samskaras are that I am a very limited being. And then you keep on struggling with it. You are not a limited being to begin with. You never were, you never are, you never will be. But this has to come from an understanding. There's no such thing as inside a room space. There's no such thing as outside a room space. There's no such thing as space never being there. It's a question of understanding. So that's what he's saying. And he says, please be devoted to this knowledge. So in number 10 he says, Vitaraga bhayakrodhaha manmaya mam upashritaha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavana magataha. So when he says, so I'm just reading the English translation, having resorted to me, many people who are free from attachment, fear and anger, who are absorbed in me, who are purified by Jnana Yoga, have attained my nature. It's very much like as in the same example that we took earlier, that if you're a room space, you're a worried person because your whole personality is tied up with your walls. They're falling down on you. They can be burnt, like it happened in Southern California or in Napa Sonoma. So the rooms are very much are vulnerable, and there can be pollution. There's noise, all kinds of things. But in space there is nothing. And even if things happen, then you just tolerate it as kind of like fun, because the space knows it cannot be polluted, it cannot be burnt. Space, you cannot burn space. And you cannot, and even if the space appears to have a color, like blue color, that does not belong to space, that belongs to the viewer of the space. And Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, it's very funny if you look at it. Ishvara has chosen the blue color as representing infinity. So that's why when you look at the ocean, where you cannot see the depth of it, it is blue. When you look at the sky, when you cannot see the end of it, it becomes blue. Funny how this thing is created. Anyway, so the room space is very worried. So it's exactly like he says, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. So if there is a teaching given to a room space and he says, please don't worry about it. Don't get concerned about walls are falling down, because that's not going to affect you. Your main personality is space. Or another example that of is the ocean and the wave. So the wave is told, you are too concerned about disappearance and this, that, or the other. You are the very water. What are you talking about? Don't you see? You are just identified with a shape and now you're getting all worried and stuff like that. So this is what he's saying. Vita bharaga bhaya krodaha manmaya mamupashritaha. Yeah, I understand that you don't quite get it, but devote yourself to the understanding that you are the water. You are not the wave. Bahavo jana tapasaha puta madbhava magataha. It may take you a while, but see the truth of it and do not waver away from it. Do not say, this doesn't work, I've come to these classes for like 5 times and that's it. I still feel the same way and I'm going to give it up. So I'm going to start drinking now. Happy hour. Krishna says, please, 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 don't do that. Just keep on understanding this until you get it. You are already free. Then in number 11, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tatha eva bhajami aham mama vartmanam vartma anuvartante manushyaha partha sarvashaha. So here he gives another issue. He says, so here so this is the Jnanam from an Ishvara standpoint. This is what we're studying, number 9, 10, 11. And then number 12 onwards, the main topic of Jnanam will be, it's like catching the main highway. Right now he's still approaching it. So here in this verse number 11, he's talking about karma phala data. So this topic is actually is a very important one, which is given in the 6th verse of the Mandukya Upanishad, which is expanded in the Karika, which we are studying. So there, the Ishvara is given as Sarvagyaha, Antaryami, and etc. Sarva Shaktiman. So this is the description of the Ishvara. So in this verse, he's saying, it is an interesting thing to see. Remember I had given you this New Year's message where I describe Swabhava and Swarupa. Right? If you recall that. So, from the standpoint of Swarupa, it's the same. There's no difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. But even in the case of Swabhava, so the difference between Swabhava and Swarupa is, the Swarupa is the person and Swabhava is the personality. Bhava is the personality. So in the example of this woman who is starring in the play and is getting beaten up, getting beaten up is the Swabhava in the play. And she as an actress is the Swarupa of the person. So if she was not a woman, she cannot act in the play as an abused woman. So she has to be a woman. But she is not an abused woman in life, hopefully. She is okay. She has a happy marriage. But you can take on the role of an abused woman. So this is called swabhava. So now, in the verse number 11, what is being talked about is that whatever swabhava you have, I bless you in that swabhava. In fact, in the example of the play, I am the creator of the play. I am the choreographer of the play. I am the one that stages the play. But it's a play. And I select the swarupas. I invite the swarupas to come and take on this swabhava on top of them. So here he says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tans tatha eva bhajami aham. Whatever samskaras you have, whatever personality you choose to play in, I am the one that gives you the appropriate phalam for that. So in a way, in some ways it says that even if, so this is interesting to see, that even if you don't get the whole thing very clearly, in the intermediate stages also, I bless you until the progress is over. What it means is, the first stage of Atma Jnanam is to recognize the presence of Ishvara in my life. Is what I was telling you about those thoughts came to me when I was writing to you about the new year, that leave aside jnanam for a while. Not leave it aside, but that's going to come. But the first stage is you have to recognize that there is a constant companion in your life, always with you. It's just that you need to learn to recognize that person. Don't you see that someone is making your heart beat? It is not just doing it by itself. The whole principle of the body, the mind, so much behind all of this. And it is our foolishness, really speaking. It's kind of like a child that doesn't understand that the parents are the ones who are helping me. You don't care about that. You just want your food. But there is so much behind the growth of a child, the parents and the teachers. And you don't, all you can, you just say, thank them. Thank you. Very superficial. But then you realize, my goodness, what an infrastructure that made me what I am. So similarly here also, I need to understand the infrastructure which is silently supporting me. And in whatever way I do, I bless you. So, ye yatha mam prapadyante, mama vartmana anuvartante manushyaha partha sarvashaha. So you can see the English translation of that. And we're almost done with this class. So whoever approaches me with any desire, I bless them with that desire itself. O Arjuna, people follow my path by all means. In fact, this is a topic of what is called antaryami. So this antaryami is a huge topic in Vedanta. So in the Brahma Sutra also this is, so I'll finish with that. I won't take any more of this time. In the Brahma Sutra, Badarayana actually asks this question. who is the Antaryami? Antaryami means the one who regulates my life, one who is responsible for what happens to me, one who's supporting me. Who is that person? So there is a debate on Brahma Sutra is always in terms of two sets of lawyers that argue on opposite sides to each other. So in Antaryamitvam, one set of lawyers say, one set of people say, I am the Antaryami. Who else can it be? I'm responsible for my life. Yes, my friends can help me and so on and so forth. My spouse, if he's in a good mood, he can help me. Otherwise, he can just ignore me. But I am always responsible for my own life. I am the Antaryami. My case is closed. Your Honor, the Jiva is the Antaryami. So the judge looks at it and says, okay, your case is finished? He says, yes. Then he goes to the other one. Sir, what do you have to say? And I am telling you this because I was very fortunate to be invited to a teaching by Swami Dayanandji. I forget if the year 2002 or 3. It's one of those, 2 or 3, where he had all of the Guru Bhais, all of the Swamis in Coimbatore. And I was invited to that. I was also sitting there. And he took on this section from a Brahma Sutra, Antaryamitvam. Anyway, that's just on the side. So then he goes to the other side and he says, Sir, what do you have to say? He said, no, wrong, wrong, wrong. Jiva cannot be the Antaryami. Cannot be the Antaryami. Why not? All the reasons that he gives. And one of the reasons, for example, is that you don't even know what you have. How can you regulate it? You're only working on the surface, in the sense that how heart beats and what's happening with the blood flow and your health and your digestive capability, all of those kinds of things, you have no idea. At best, you are only dealing with some symptoms. Then you say, oh, I've got some heart problem. Oh, my digestive problem, I've got a stomach ache. That's all you're doing, some very superficial thing. Who's responsible for making you all, the whole dynamics of the DNA, all this sort of so forth. Somebody has done it. And it all didn't come out by itself. You cannot just say that this is like, even if you have an iPhone, you cannot say the iPhone came by itself. It took a lot of effort for people to devise something. So similarly, the whole creation has been done by someone. And the one who is responsible for how it happens, Ishvara, is the Antaryami. So now both the lawyers have given their best cases, and Badarayana, Sutra Krita, Vyasa, gives the final. This is like the Supreme Court. So in Supreme Court, you have arguments from both sides. That no, I think abortion should be allowed. No, it should not be allowed, like this. And the Supreme Court has to look at everything and give its verdict. So here, Badarayana Vyasa gives these. The first one is wrong, the second one is right. Ishvara is the Antaryami. Ishvara is the Antaryami. So this is a section which is greatly, and we will see sometimes if you have a chance to read the 6th chapter of the Panchadashi of Antaryamitvam. Beautiful section. How? How is that possible? I think I'm responsible for my life. I don't even know where Ishvara is. What has that got to do with me? This is my ignorance. I have to see the presence of Ishvara. And seeing that and understanding the presence of Ishvara, not just the presence, but the active role of the Ishvara in my life is prelude to Jnanam. So that is the essence of the verses number 9, 10, and 11 towards the main highway, which is Vijnanam, from verse number 12 onwards. Gosh, I made even less progress than I thought it was going to make. You get me to sit here and talk and I'll never finish. Anyway, we'll take it up next time. It'll be good to, it's good to have a kind of like an overview revision of a chapter, you know, so you can keep it under. So if it takes more than class or two, I think it is worth doing it. Okay, so with that, small prayer. Asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, time for a few questions if you have any.
Jiva and Atma.
Yeah.
So in my next life, will I be carrying the same Jiva in the next life?
So there it will be partial. So Sukshma Sharira you will continue, and Sthula Sharira you'll have to give up. But Sukshma Sharira is yours. So your tendencies, your forgiveness, your love, and so on, will serve with you in your next life. And those are the same equipments that allow you to understand the whole thing. So that part continues. So the Jiva as a entity stays on until the merger with Ishvara. Yeah.
And the Swabhava. Swabhava, can it be changed in a person?
Yes, of course, Swabhava can be changed. So for example, you know, because the nature of Jiva is that we make mistakes. But if you learn from the mistakes and correct it, then your status in life will be at a place where you have more of a sattvic personality, where you are introspective, where you are inquiring. And so yes, that Swabhava can, so really speaking, I think that will come here also in terms of the Varna Ashrama system. Right in the 4th chapter we're going to study it. So in terms of the Varna Ashrama, Brahmana, Kshatriya, and so on and so forth, all of that is meaningless except for the guna. So guna, from a guna standpoint, there is actually a progression from tamas to rajas to sattva. And so the swabhava, where it becomes a sattva pradhana, is the one that we should be going towards. So sattva pradhana means, like for example, even in this life, people who are much more interested in research and knowledge rather than making money. Scientists, researchers, spiritual people. And so this is all sattva pradhana. And if you keep doing that, then you have a much better chance of discovering yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, correct me, my understanding, that when the body dies, the vasana take up and take up another body. But the rest of it remains. Rest of it's gone, which is the sthula sharira and the mind and the body. I thought that is what was described somewhere in chapter 15. Am I
So,
understanding?
no, I mean, I just want to make sure that I understand your paraphrasing is correct. So, the vasanas or samskaras, it's really same thing. Vasanas are usually used in a negative sense, and samskaras are used in a positive sense. So, but they are pretty much the same thing. So this is what is called adrishtaphala. Adrishtaphala means one which is, so just to back off for a minute before I answer your question, all karmas have two phalas, drishtaphala and adrishtaphala. Drishtaphala is something which is obvious and immediate and done with. Adrishtaphala is something which is left over, which has not yet been dealt with. So the very typical example is that supposing you have a murder committed, and where somebody dies and so on and so forth, whether or not you get caught is not important. The main thing is that you now have to fulfill the result of committing a crime. Same thing with the doctor saving a life. You know, it's very possible that the doctors did a marvelous job of saving somebody's life, and the family is very saying, wonderful, you give them flowers, you send them a chocolate or something. But that's not it. There is much more behind all of that, what the doctor has done. So those are called samskaras. So samskaras or vasanas are adrishtaphala. Okay? Having said that, then we are all so my life at any one time is a result of drishtaphala and adrishtaphala. And some of the adrishtaphala, which in terms of vasanas and so on, have not yet been exhausted and may not be exhausted in this life. In fact, they will not be exhausted because I've got an infinite of those. So what happens is there are, so the vasanas are in my account, and the vasanas and adrishtaphala only have to do with swabhava, not with the swarupa. My swarupa is always satyam jnanam anantam, but I don't know it. So until then, my swabhava is governed by vasanas that are kind of like, you know, below the surface, but they influence where I am at any one time. And drishtaphala, where you take up body and so on and so forth. So to summarize this, in the next life, your sthula sharira may be completely different. One time we are born in India, one time we are born as a man, sometimes as a woman, whatever it is, those are different things. But the sukshma sharira, which by the way includes definitely the manaha, pranaha, includes pranaha also. And what that means is the tendencies for having diseases is also part of the sukshma sharira. Prana also includes prana, apana, samana, vyana, etc. So these are all tendencies to have diseases and so on, which are all done by the through the avasanas and so on and so forth. More than that is the mind, which allows me to lead a clean life. Those are also learnt over time, and they stay with you as your sabhava, and those don't have to be given up. Bodily functions, some of them will be influenced by diseases. It's very possible that in this life, for example, you may have been born with respiratory problems. In the next life, the respiratory problems will be okay, but maybe some other problem will be there. Those will be all part of the prana, and you will keep that with you all the time. So, in terms of the spectrum, the manaha and buddhi are definitely yours for a long time. Prana is partially gone, partially in this life, and partially retained, and body which is completely taken up. Not taken up again. That's kind of like the overall sense of where it is. Yeah. Yes, Viren?
Why is Jnanam spelled with a J, not a G?
So it's actually a very funny thing. It is not Jnanam as it is in Hindi. It is Jnanam. So it has a nasality to it, and it's actually a J and a Ya. It's a combination of, it's a conjugate consonant. It's not a simple consonant in Sanskritam. But in Hindi, it has been translated as Jnanam with a G. And as you know, so there are different vernacular languages that change things. In Punjabi, there are no conjugate consonants at all. So in Punjabi, Jnanam is called Gyan. Usko Gyan ho gaya, Gyan. Like the two different ones. So it's even worse than Hindi in that sense. But the Sanskrit word is Jnanam. Jnana buddhi. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll ask another question. I hope
Sure.
it's not viewed as a frivolous question. I'm having this question in my mind. If we are living forever, if we exist forever,
Correct.
then why does the world population change if we stay constant? Right?
So here it's interesting why you should say that with this question, because my father used to ask me this question, and when I started Vedanta, so he says, Vedanta doesn't make any sense. I says, why, my father? So he says, because the population is increasing and this, that, or the other. This was one of the first questions I asked Swami Dayanand when I met him. And his answer to that was that there is no such thing as, there's a thing called infinity. Swabhava is infinity. Swarupa is ekatvam. So the number of people and the number of situations, the number of events is infinity. There's no control over that. Infinity is not a number. It's too large for numbers. There's no finality to it. So whether people are born or not born, there are infinite number of jivas. Some of them choose to take birth in this earth at this time and this situation. Some of them are someplace else. It's an infinite number of svabhavas, infinite number. But the swarupa is only one. So that's the answer, but we can discuss it in some more detail. All right, thank you all. We'll see you next week. So I made an announcement that next Saturday, oh yeah, that's an important thing. Ramanandji